A desperate proposal. The hospital bills stacked on Natalie Brooks's kitchen table told a story of desperation. $12,000 for her mother's surgery. Another $8,000 for the medications. Her teaching salary barely covered rent, let alone the mountain of medical debt crushing her family. At 28, she had stopped dreaming about art galleries or traveling. Now she just dreamed about surviving another month. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning. Heavy cream paper. Expensive. Inside was a business card embossed with a single name, Roman Blackwell. She recognized it immediately. Everyone in Seattle knew that name. The tech genius who built ByteForge Industries from his college dorm into a global empire. The billionaire who never gave interviews, never attended galas, and whose face appeared in magazines only through long-range photographer shots. Below his name was a handwritten note in sharp, precise letters. I have a proposition that could solve your financial situation. Meet me at Harborview Tower, Suite 4000, tomorrow at noon. Come alone. Natalie's hands trembled as she read it 3 times. This had to be a scam. Billionaires did not contact struggling art teachers out of nowhere. Yet something about the formal tone, the quality of the paper, felt legitimate. Her mother's surgery was scheduled in 2 weeks. The hospital had already sent the final notice. She had nothing left to lose. The offer that changed everything. Harborview Tower pierced the Seattle skyline like a glass needle. Natalie felt out of place the moment she stepped into the marble lobby, her worn flats squeaking against the polished floor. Security escorted her to a private elevator that opened directly into Suite 4000. The penthouse office was all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture. And there, standing with his back to her, looking out at the city, was Roman Blackwell himself. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell carelessly across his forehead. When he turned, his eyes were the cold gray of winter storms. Miss Brooks. His voice was deep, controlled. Thank you for coming. Why am I here? Natalie managed to keep her voice steady despite her racing heart. He gestured to a chair. Sit. This will take some explanation. What he told her next sounded like fiction. Roman Blackwell, despite his billions, had a problem money could not solve. His grandfather's will contained a peculiar clause to maintain control of ByteForge Industries. Roman had to be married by his 35th birthday, which was in 3 weeks. His board of directors, hungry for power, was counting on him to fail. They had already begun maneuvering to seize control. I need a wife, he said flatly, as if discussing a business acquisition. For exactly 1 year. After that, we divorce quietly, and you walk away with enough money to solve your problems permanently. Natalie stared at him. This is insane. This is practical. He slid a folder across the desk. The contract is thorough. Your mother's medical bills paid immediately. A trust fund established in your name with $2 million, accessible after the divorce. In exchange, you attend public events with me, maintain the appearance of a devoted wife, and ask no questions about my business. Her throat went dry. $2 million. Her mother's surgery covered. No more sleepless nights calculating which bill to pay first. But marrying a stranger? Why me? She whispered for the first time. Something flickered in his eyes. Because you are not part of my world. You have no connections to exploit, no social climbing ambitions. You need help? I need a solution. It is a clean transaction. Clean. As if marriage could ever be clean. Natalie looked at the contract and at her phone, where 17 missed calls from the hospital glowed on the screen. She thought of her mother's pale face in the hospital bed, the way she tried to smile through the pain. Where do I sign? The wedding day 2 weeks later, Natalie stood in a private room at Sacred Heart Cathedral, staring at her reflection. The wedding dress Roman's assistant had selected was beautiful, but impersonal. Elegant ivory silk that fit perfectly, but felt like a costume. She held a simple bouquet of wildflowers, the only personal choice she had insisted on. Daisies and baby's breath. The flowers her mother used to pick on their weekend walks. The cathedral was small. Attendance limited to exactly what the grandfathers were required. 12 witnesses. No friends, no family. Just Roman's lawyer, a handful of business associates, and a photographer to document the ceremony for legal purposes. Natalie walked down the aisle alone, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Roman waited at the altar, immaculate in a charcoal suit, his expression unreadable. This was not a man about to marry for love. This was a man fulfilling a contract. The ceremony was brief, mechanical. The priest seemed uncomfortable, rushing through the vows as if he could sense the loveless arrangement. When it came time for the rings, Roman's hand was steady as he slid the platinum band onto her finger. It was cold, just like everything else about this arrangement. "You may kiss the bride," the priest announced. Roman leaned in, and for a moment, Natalie thought he might actually kiss her. Instead, his lips barely brushed her cheek, a gesture so quick the photographer almost missed it. But as he pulled back, his mouth was next to her ear. "Trust me," he whispered, so quietly only she could hear. "This will work out for both of us." The words sent a shiver down her spine. They were the first personal thing he had said to her since she signed the contract. What did he mean? Was it reassurance or warning? The photographer captured the moment, the flash freezing them in what looked like an intimate embrace. To anyone viewing the photo, it would appear tender, romantic, but Natalie felt only confusion and the growing weight of what she had agreed to. The first. Nitromon's estate sat on 20 acres outside the city, a modern fortress of glass and steel hidden behind towering gates. The drive there was silent, except for the hum of the town car's engine. He scrolled through his phone, already back to business, while she pressed her forehead against the cool window. Watching Seattle's lights fade into darkness, the house staff greeted them with rehearsed efficiency. Faces professionally blank. A housekeeper named Grace showed Natalie to the master suite, a sprawling room that could have fit her entire apartment 3 times over. Everything was pristine, impersonal. It looked like a hotel, not a home. "Mr. Blackwell's room is through there." Grace gestured to a door on the far wall. "He requested separate spaces for your comfort." Of course he did. Even in marriage, distance was part of the contract. After Grace left, Natalie sank onto the edge of the massive bed, still wearing the wedding dress. The enormity of what she had done crashed over her. She had married a stranger, a billionaire who saw her as a solution to a problem, nothing more. The connecting door opened, and Roman entered, tie loosened, looking tired in a way that made him seem almost human. He stopped a few feet from her, maintaining that careful distance. "The money for your mother's surgery has been transferred to the hospital," he said. "She can have the procedure this week." Natalie's eyes burned with sudden tears. "Thank you." He nodded once, then moved toward the door. But he paused with his hand on the handle, his back to her. "The contract is clear about our arrangement," he said, his voice lower now, almost gentle. "But I want you to know something it does not cover. You are safe here. Whatever you need, whatever makes this year bearable for you, just ask." She wanted to respond, but her throat had closed with emotion. Roman turned slightly, his profile sharp in the dim light. "I know this is not the life you imagined, but I meant what I said at the altar. Trust me." There it was again. Those 2 words that felt too personal for a business arrangement. Before she could ask what he meant, he was gone. The door clicking softly behind him. Natalie sat alone in the silent mansion. A gold ring on her finger and a stranger's whispered promise echoing in her ears. She had married for money, for survival, for her mother's life. But something in Roman Blackwell's eyes, when he said, "Trust me," suggested this contract might become far more complicated than either of them anticipated. Outside, Seattle's rain began to fall, pattering against the floor-to-ceiling windows like 1,000 tiny warnings. The year had begun, and Natalie had no idea whether she had just made the best decision of her life or the worst. The morning after, Natalie woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a disoriented moment, she forgot where she was. Then the weight of the platinum ring on her finger brought reality crashing back. She was married. To a billionaire, in a mansion that felt more like a museum than a home. The connecting door to Roman's room stood open, but he was already gone. A note on the nightstand, written in that same precise handwriting from the first letter, "Breakfast is at 8." We have a board meeting at 10. Wear something professional? The closet has been stocked. Natalie walked to the massive closet and gasped. Rows of designer clothes, all in her size, with tags still attached. Dresses, suits, casual wear, everything organized by color and occasion. Shoes lined the bottom shelves, handbags on the top. It was overwhelming, like stepping into a department store where everything had been selected specifically for her. She chose a navy dress and matching heels, feeling like she was putting on armor. When she made her way downstairs, she found Roman already seated at a dining table that could seat 20, reading the financial news on his tablet. He glanced up briefly. Good. You are ready. No good morning, no? How did you sleep? Just efficiency. The breakfast was elaborate, but untouched on his end. Natalie sat at the far end of the table, the distance between them absurd. She tried to eat the perfectly prepared omelet, but her stomach churned with anxiety about the board meeting. What exactly will I be doing at this meeting? She asked. Roman did not look up. Sitting beside me? Looking content. That is all. I feel like a prop. You are a prop, he said, then finally met her eyes. But a necessary one. My grandfather's will requires proof of marriage, proof of commitment. The board will be watching for any sign this is fake. It is fake, Natalie said quietly. Something flickered across his face. Then we need to make sure they never know that. The brutal board meeting by Forge Industries headquarters was a gleaming tower in downtown Seattle, Roman's name etched above the entrance. Employees stared as they walked through the lobby, whispers following in their wake. News of the sudden marriage had already spread through the company. The boardroom was all dark wood and leather chairs, with a view of Elliott Bay stretching beyond the windows. 12 board members sat waiting, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. These were the people trying to take Roman's company, Natalie realized. And she was the only thing standing in their way. Gentlemen, Roman said, his hand resting lightly on Natalie's lower back as he guided her to a chair beside his at the head of the table. I believe you have all heard the news. Allow me to introduce my wife, Natalie Blackwell. The name jolted her. She was a Blackwell now, at least on paper. A silver-haired man named Douglas Pemberton leaned forward, his smile predatory. Quite sudden, was it not, Roman? We had no idea you were even seeing anyone. I prefer to keep my personal life private, Roman replied smoothly. Fascinating. Tell us, Mrs. Blackwell, how did you two meet? It must have been quite the whirlwind romance. Natalie's heart hammered. They had not prepared a story. Roman's hand found hers under the table, squeezing once, a silent message. We met through mutual friends, she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Roman does not like attention, so we kept things quiet. In your background? Another board member pressed. What do you do? I teach art at Lincoln High School, Natalie said. Or I did, until recently. The room erupted in barely concealed scoffs. An art teacher? Married to a tech billionaire? The disbelief was palpable. How convenient, Pemberton said. That this marriage happened exactly 3 weeks before the deadline in your grandfather's will. Almost as if it were planned. Roman's jaw tightened. My personal decisions are not subject to board approval. No, but your fitness to lead this company is. Pemberton stood, pulling out a folder. We have reason to believe this marriage is a sham, designed solely to circumvent your grandfather's intentions. If proven, the will is void, and control passes to the board. Natalie felt the blood drain from her face. They knew. Or at least they suspected. You have no proof of anything, Roman said coldly. Not yet. Pemberton smiled. But we will be watching very carefully, Mr. Blackwell. Every public appearance, every interaction. If this marriage is fake, we will expose it. The meeting continued for another hour, but Natalie barely heard it. Her mind raced with the implications. They were not just playing house for the cameras, they were being hunted, every moment scrutinized for cracks in their performance. The gala disastered that evening. Roman informed her they would be attending the Seattle Children's Hospital Charity Gala. Our first public appearance as a married couple, he said. It needs to be convincing. Natalie wore an emerald gown from the stocked closet, the fabric clinging to her curves in ways that made her feel exposed. Roman wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than her car. As they entered the ballroom at the Four Seasons, camera flashes exploded like fireworks. Mr. Blackwell. Over here. Is it true you were secretly dating for years? Mrs. Blackwell. How does it feel to marry Seattle's most eligible bachelor? Roman's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. To the cameras, it looked protective, romantic. But Natalie could feel the tension in his body. This was performance, nothing more. Inside the gala, the scrutiny intensified. Seattle's elite circled like sharks, their smiles sharp and questions sharper. Roman introduced her to dozens of people whose names she immediately forgot, their eyes assessing her worth, finding her lacking. Then she saw Pemberton across the room, watching them with calculating eyes. He was not alone. Several board members had attended, clearly hoping to catch them in a mistake. We should dance, Roman murmured in her ear. They expected. He led her to the dance floor, one hand on her waist, the other clasping hers. The orchestra played something slow and elegant. Natalie tried to follow his lead, but she was trembling. Relax, he said quietly. You are doing fine. I feel like everyone is staring. They are. Let them. His hand pressed more firmly against her back, steadying her. Just focus on me. She looked up, meeting those storm-gray eyes. This close, she could see flecks of blue in them, a slight scar above his left eyebrow. He was handsome in a way that seemed almost unfair, all sharp angles and controlled power. But there was something else too, something she had not noticed before. Loneliness. Why did you really choose me? She asked softly, the question she had been afraid to voice. Roman's expression flickered. For a moment, she thought he might actually answer honestly. But then his gaze shifted over her shoulder, and his entire body went rigid. I have a problem, he murmured. Natalie turned to see a woman approaching. Stunning in a red dress, with platinum blonde hair and a smile that did not reach her eyes. She moved through the crowd with the confidence of someone who belonged in this world. Roman, the woman said, her voice carrying across the dance floor. I heard the most ridiculous rumor that you got married. Please tell me it is not true. Roman's hand tightened on Natalie's waist. Vanessa. The name landed like a stone. Vanessa Hartley, Natalie realized. She had seen the society pages. Vanessa was old money, Yale educated. And according to gossip sites, Roman's on again. Off again girlfriend for years. And this must be the lucky bride. Vanessa's eyes raked over Natalie with undisguised contempt. How unexpected. I did not realize Roman's taste had become so modest. Natalie felt her cheeks burn. Every insecurity she had about this arrangement rose to the surface. Vanessa, Roman's voice held a warning. Now is not the time. Oh, I think it is exactly the time. Vanessa stepped closer, addressing Natalie directly. Did he tell you about us? About how we were supposed to announce our engagement at this very gala? The words hit like a physical blow. Natalie looked at Roman, searching for denial, but his face had gone carefully blank. That was never happening, Roman said. Was it not? Vanessa laughed, the sound brittle. We dated for 3 years, Roman. Everyone knew we would marry eventually. Then you suddenly show up with this. She gestured dismissively at Natalie. Do you really expect anyone to believe you fell in love with a schoolteacher? The nearby guests had stopped dancing, creating a circle around them. Phones appeared, recording every moment. This was exactly what Pemberton and the board wanted. Evidence that the marriage was a fraud. Natalie wanted to run, to disappear, to wake up from this nightmare. But Roman's hand still held hers, his grip almost painful now. What I expect, Roman said, his voice dropping to a dangerous level, is for you to leave my wife alone. Your wife, Vanessa scoffed. This is a joke, Roman. Everyone knows it. How much are you paying her? Because whatever it is not enough to make this performance believable. The accusation hung in the air. Cameras clicked. Guests whispered. Natalie felt the walls closing in. Then Roman did something she never expected. He turned to her, cupped her face in both hands, and kissed her. Not a gentle press of lips, a real kiss, deep and claiming, the kind that left no room for doubt. Natalie gasped against his mouth, and he used the opportunity to deepen the kiss further, his fingers threading through her hair. When he finally pulled back, the ballroom was silent. Natalie's heart thundered against her ribs. That kiss had not felt like performance. It had felt real, desperate, like he was trying to prove something to himself as much as to the watching crowd. "Does that answer your question?" Roman asked Vanessa, his arms still around Natalie's waist. Vanessa's face had gone pale with fury. Without another word, she turned and stalked away, the crowd parting for her. The music resumed. Conversation slowly started again. But Natalie could barely breathe. She looked up at Roman, searching for explanation. But his expression had already shuttered closed. "We should go," he said quietly. They left the gala in silence. The car ride back to the estate, stretching endlessly. Natalie's lips still tingled from the kiss. Her mind replayed it over and over, trying to understand what it meant. Finally, as they pulled through the gates, she found her voice. "Why did you kiss me like that?" Roman stared straight ahead. They needed to believe it. It felt like more than that. It was not. His words were clipped final. "Do not read into it, Natalie. Everything tonight was for the cameras." But when they entered the house and went their separate ways, Natalie caught his reflection in the hallway mirror. Roman stood there for a long moment, fingers pressed to his lips, looking more conflicted than she had ever seen him. The contract said 1 year. The kiss had lasted 10 seconds. But something had shifted between them, a crack in the foundation of their arrangement that neither could ignore. The discovery the next morning, Natalie could not sleep. She wandered through the massive house, eventually finding herself in Roman's study. She knew she should not be there, but curiosity pulled her forward. The room smelled of leather and the expensive cologne he wore, making her think of the kiss she was trying desperately to forget. His desk was meticulously organized. But one drawer stood slightly open. Inside, she found a file with her name on it. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Everything was there. Her entire life, documented in clinical detail, her mother's medical records, her father's death certificate from 10 years ago, her teaching evaluations, even her credit card statements showing the mounting debt. He had investigated her thoroughly before making his offer, but underneath those documents was something else. A medical report with Roman's name on it. The words blurred as she read, "Chronic insomnia. Recommended treatment. Therapy for unresolved trauma related to parental abandonment and trust issues." Natalie's breath caught. Roman's carefully constructed image of the cold, calculating billionaire suddenly made terrible sense. He was not heartless. He was protecting himself. She kept reading and found a letter yellowed with age. In a child's handwriting, "Dear Mom, please come home. Dad says, you are not coming back, but I know you will. I will be good. I promise. Love, Roman." The letter was dated 25 years ago. Roman would have been 10. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Natalie quickly closed the file, but she was not fast enough. Roman appeared in the doorway, his expression thunderous when he saw what she held. "What are you doing in here?" His voice was ice. "I was just going through my private files." He crossed the room in 3 strides, snatching the folder from her hands. "This is my study. You have no right." "I am sorry," Natalie said, but she was not. Because now she understood. "Your mother left." Roman froze, his jaw clenching. "That is none of your concern. Is that why you do not trust anyone? Why you needed a contract instead of a real marriage?" "Stop." The word came out harsh, wounded. "You know nothing about me." "I know you have been hurt," Natalie said softly. "I know you are so afraid of being abandoned again that you push everyone away first." "Enough." Roman slammed the file on his desk. "This is a business arrangement. My past, my feelings, none of that matters. You are here for 1 year, then you leave. That is the deal. What if I do not want to just be a deal anymore?" The words escaped before she could stop them. Roman stared at her, something raw and vulnerable flashing across his face before he buried it. "Then you are a fool. Because this," he gestured between them, "will never be real. I do not do real." He walked out, leaving Natalie alone in the study, her heart breaking for the 10-year-old boy who had written that letter and for the man who was still waiting for his mother to come home. She looked down at the medical report still on the desk. Roman Blackwell was not just protecting his company. He was protecting his heart. And somehow, without meaning to, Natalie had started to care about both. The contract said 1 year, but the real question was no longer about time. It was whether two broken people, brought together by desperation, could find something neither had been looking for: a reason to trust again. The real reason 3 months into their marriage. Everything changed. Natalie had settled into an uneasy routine at the mansion, attending events on Roman's arm by night and keeping her distance by day, just as the contract required. But the kiss at the gala haunted her, and she caught Roman watching her sometimes, with an expression she could not decipher. Then came the morning when everything unraveled. Natalie was in the garden, sketching the rose bushes, when Grace approached with an urgent expression. "Mrs. Blackwell, there are men here from the Federal Trade Commission. They're asking for Mr. Blackwell." Natalie's stomach dropped. She hurried inside to find Roman in his study, facing 3 stern officials in dark suits. His face was pale but composed. "What is happening?" she asked. One of the officials turned to her. "Mrs. Blackwell, we are investigating Byteforge Industries for potential securities fraud. Your husband is a person of interest." The words did not make sense. Roman, involved in fraud? "That is absurd," Natalie said, but Roman held up a hand. "Natalie, please, let me handle this." The officials questioned him for 2 hours. When they finally left, Roman sank into his chair, looking more exhausted than she had ever seen him. "Tell me the truth," Natalie demanded. "All of it." Roman was silent for a long moment, then finally looked at her. 6 months ago, my CFO, Thomas Waverly, embezzled $40 million from the company. He covered his tracks well, making it look like the transactions were authorized by me. When the board discovered the discrepancy, Pemberton saw an opportunity to take control of the company, Natalie whispered. "Yes, they pushed for an investigation, leaked information to the press. My reputation was destroyed before I could prove my innocence. Even when I discovered Thomas was responsible and turned over the evidence, the damage was done. Investors were fleeing, stock prices plummeting." He stood, walking to the window. "Then I remembered my grandfather's will. The marriage clause. It was my last card to play. If I could maintain control long enough to clear my name and stabilize the company, I would survive. If not, why did you not just tell me this from the beginning?" Natalie asked. Roman turned to face her. "Because everyone I have ever trusted has betrayed me. My mother abandoned our family when I was 10. My father drank himself to death by the time I was 16. I built this company from nothing, and my own CFO tried to destroy it." His voice cracked slightly. "Trust is not something I give easily." Natalie's heart ached for him. "So you picked me because I was desperate enough to say yes, but powerless enough that I could not hurt you." "Yes," he admitted. "But that was before." "Before what?" He closed his eyes. "Before I realized that not trusting you might hurt worse than any betrayal." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Before Natalie could respond, Roman's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went ashen. "What is it?" she asked. "Pemberton. He has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. He is moving to have me removed as CEO." The crisis the next morning, Natalie woke to find Roman already dressed in a charcoal suit, staring out at the Seattle skyline. He had not slept. She could see it in the tightness around his eyes. "I am going with you," she said. Double quotes. "No, this will get ugly." That is the whole point of this arrangement, is it not? To show them you are stable, committed, trustworthy. Roman looked at her for a long moment. "This is not your fight." "Yes, it is." Natalie moved closer. "Whatever else this marriage is or is not, we are in this together." That was the deal.
Ow.
Something softened in his expression. "Thank you." The boardroom was packed when they arrived. Not just the 12 board members, but lawyers, journalists, even federal investigators. Pemberton sat at the far end of the table, a predatory smile on his face. "Mr. Blackwell," Pemberton began, "thank you for joining us. We have disturbing new evidence regarding both the securities fraud and the legitimacy of your marriage." He clicked a remote and a screen descended. Images appeared. Photos of Natalie entering the hospital where her mother had surgery. Bank statements showing the $2 million transfer. A copy of the prenuptial agreement with the one-year clause highlighted. "This marriage is a sham," Pemberton declared, "contracted solely to circumvent your grandfather's will. We have testimony from staff members that you and Mrs. Blackwell maintain separate bedrooms, barely speak, and show affection only when cameras are present." The room erupted in whispers. Journalists scribbled frantically. Roman's hand found Natalie's under the table, gripping tight. "Furthermore," Pemberton continued, "we have evidence that you personally authorized the fraudulent transactions." "That is a lie," Roman cut in, his voice steel. "Thomas Waverly forged my signature. The FBI has confirmed this." "Have they?" Pemberton's smile widened. "Or are you using your considerable resources to manufacture innocence?" Natalie watched Roman's jaw clench. He was losing. Pemberton had orchestrated this perfectly, combining the fraud investigation with doubts about the marriage to create an unsalvageable situation. Then Pemberton played his final card. "We also have this." A video appeared on the screen. Security footage from the night Roman had proposed to Natalie. The audio was clear. "I need a wife for exactly 1 year. After that, we divorce quietly, and you walk away with enough money to solve your problems permanently." The room exploded. Board members shouted over each other. Journalists rushed for the doors to file their stories. The evidence was damning, undeniable. Roman's face had gone pale. He looked at Natalie, and she saw defeat in his eyes. "I am sorry," he whispered. "You should not have been dragged into this." But Natalie was not thinking about the contract anymore, or the money, or even her mother's medical bills. She was thinking about the 10-year-old boy who wrote letters to a mother who never came home. The teenager who built a business empire from nothing. The man who had been so hurt by betrayal that he built walls higher than his skyscrapers. She was thinking about how, despite everything, she had fallen in love with him. "May I speak?" Natalie stood, her voice cutting through the chaos. Pemberton looked amused. "By all means, Mrs. Blackwell, though I doubt anything you say will change the facts." Natalie took a breath. "You are right. The marriage began as a contract. Roman needed a wife to satisfy his grandfather's will. I needed money for my mother's medical care. It was a transaction, nothing more." Roman stared at her, confusion and hurt warring on his face. "But here's what your investigation missed," Natalie continued. "Contracts are about terms and conditions. They are about protecting yourself from risk. Roman wrote this contract because he has been betrayed by everyone he ever trusted. His mother left. His father died. His CFO stole from him. He has learned that people cannot be trusted. So he reduced human connection to legal terms." She turned to face Roman directly. "And I signed that contract because I was desperate. Because my mother was dying, and I had no other options. I agreed to pretend to be a wife for money." Her voice softened. "But somewhere along the way, I stopped pretending." The room had gone silent. "I fell in love with my husband," Natalie said, tears streaming down her face. "Not because of the contract, but in spite of it. I fell in love with a man who tries so hard not to need anyone that he has forgotten how to let anyone in. A man who protected me from his family's judgment. Who kissed me at a gala when someone insulted me. Who whispers trust me like it is both a promise and a prayer." She looked at Pemberton. "So yes, this marriage began as a fraud, but it is real now. I do not care about the money anymore. I care about him." Roman stood abruptly, his chair scraping back. "Natalie, do not. I know this ruins everything," she cut him off. "I know the contract said 1 year, no emotions, clean divorce. I know I am breaking the terms. But I cannot sit here and let you lose everything because I was too afraid to tell the truth." She turned back to the board. "Do what you want with the company. Investigate. Fire him. I do not care. But do not you dare question whether Roman Blackwell deserves loyalty, because I have seen who he really is, and he deserves so much more than this world has given him." The silence stretched. Then Roman moved, crossing to her in 3 long strides. He cupped her face in his hands, searching her eyes.
"Ow, you love me?"
His voice was raw, disbelieving. "I do," Natalie whispered. "I am so sorry. I know that was not part of the deal." He kissed her. Right there, in front of the board, the investigators, the cameras. A kiss that tasted like desperation and hope and 3 months of pretending not to feel what they felt when they broke apart. Roman kept his forehead pressed to hers. "The contract was my way of protecting myself," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "But she is right. Somewhere along the way, it became real. I fell in love with my wife." He turned to address the board, but kept Natalie's hand in his. "You want the truth? Here it is. Yes, I married Natalie to satisfy my grandfather's will. Yes, it was a business arrangement. But that woman just stood in front of all of you and declared her love for me, knowing it would cost her everything. That kind of courage, that kind of loyalty, I have spent my entire life searching for it and building contracts to protect myself from never finding it." His voice strengthened. "So if you want to take my company, take it. If you want to prosecute me for fraud I did not commit, try. But you cannot take her love. And you cannot make me regret that this contract became the best decision I ever made." Pemberton stood, his face red with fury. "This is absurd. You cannot seriously expect us to, Mr. Pemberton," a new voice cut in. One of the federal investigators stepped forward. "We have just received confirmation from the FBI. Thomas Waverly has confessed to the embezzlement and forgery. Mr. Blackwell has been cleared of all fraud charges." The room erupted again, but this time the energy had shifted. Pemberton's face went white. Several board members who had been supporting him suddenly looked uncertain. Furthermore, the investigator continued. "Our investigation revealed that you, Mr. Pemberton, were aware of Waverly's activities and chose not to report them, hoping to use the scandal to seize control of the company." Security officers appeared at the doors. Pemberton tried to run but was quickly detained. As he was led away, he shouted, "This is not over." But it was over. The truth was out. Both about the fraud and about the marriage. The surprising resolution, in the aftermath, the board voted. With Pemberton's corruption exposed, Roman was unanimously reinstated as CEO. The company's stock price surged on the news. Investors returned, confident again in Roman's leadership. But Roman barely noticed. He and Natalie sat in his office long after everyone had left, hands clasped, processing everything that had happened. "The contract is void now," Roman said quietly. "You confessed it was fake. The grandfather's will clause is satisfied by time served, but you are free to leave." Natalie's heart clenched. "Is that what you want?" "What I want," Roman said, turning to face her fully, "is to tear up that contract and start over. No terms, no conditions, no end date. Just us trying to build something real." "What about the money?" Natalie asked. "The $2 million, keep it. It is yours, contract or not. Your mother's care, your future, that is not negotiable." He pulled her closer. "But I am asking you to stay. Not as part of a deal, but because you want to. Because we are worth fighting for." Natalie felt tears spill over again. "I already told you I love you in front of a room full of people. Did you think I was going anywhere?" Roman laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. "I have spent my whole life protecting myself from this moment. And now that it is here, I cannot believe how lucky I am." He pulled a folder from his desk drawer, the contract they had both signed. Without ceremony, he tore it in half, then half again, letting the pieces fall like confetti. "No more contracts," he said. "Just promises. And I promise to trust you, to let you in, to stop running from the one thing I have wanted my whole life." "What is that?" Natalie asked. "Someone to come home to." 1 year later, the cathedral was the same, but everything else had changed. This time the pews were filled with people who mattered. Natalie's mother, healthy and beaming her teaching colleagues. Roman's small circle of true friends. Even Grace the housekeeper dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Natalie walked down the aisle in a dress she had chosen herself, carrying wildflowers again because she loved them and because Roman now understood what they meant. Honest, simple, real Roman waited at the altar, and this time his eyes were full of emotion, love, joy, and that lingering disbelief that he had found someone who stayed. The vows were different too. Not the mechanical words from before, but promises they had written themselves. "I promise to trust you," Roman said, his voice thick with emotion, "even when my past tells me not to. I promise to let you see the parts of me I have always hidden. I promise that you will never have to wonder if you matter, because you are everything." Natalie's hands trembled as she spoke her vows. "I promise to stay, even when things get hard. I promise to love you, not for what you can give me, but for who you are. I promise that you will never have to face anything alone again." When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, freely, truly, this time Roman kissed her like he had at the gala, like he had in the boardroom, like he had been wanting to for months. But this kiss was different. It was not for cameras or contracts or proving anything to anyone. It was just for them, at the reception. Held at the mansion that had become a real home? Natalie's mother pulled her aside. "I never thanked you properly," her mother said. "For what you did. For marrying him to save me." Natalie shook her head. "I did not save you, Mom. He did. And somehow, in the process, we saved each other." She looked across the room to where Roman stood, laughing at something one of the guests had said. He caught her eye and smiled, that rare, genuine smile that still made her heart skip. Her mother squeezed her hand. "Some contracts," she said wisely, "are meant to be broken, because what you build from the ashes is so much stronger." That night, after the guests had left and the house was quiet, Roman found Natalie on the balcony, looking out at the Seattle skyline.